Hey kiddos. All right, this is going to be for lesson 12.4, which is called Add Fractions with Denominators of 10 and 100. So before we even get started, I want you to go ahead and get out a marker and your whiteboard, or if you can't find your whiteboard marker, go ahead and just get out a piece of paper and a pencil. Okay, so we're going to be looking at fractions and adding them. Okay, the biggest thing when we add fractions is one thing has to remain the same. Do you guys remember what that is? When we add fractions, say we have 1/4 and we want to add another fraction, what has to stay the same when we add? Hopefully you came up with the denominator, right? So we could take 1/4 plus 2/4 equals 3/4. Okay, but we aren't ready and we aren't at that level where we can take 1/4 and add it to 2/5. Okay, because those denominators are not the same. You'll get to a point where you're able to do that, but I'm going to tell you, you aren't there yet. Okay, save that for 5th grade. Mr. Dirksen will teach you that. All right, so we've got fractions, and we're going to be looking at fractions that are written as tenths and fractions that are written as hundredths. Okay, now what I am going to teach you is how you can make your tenths into 100ths and your hundredths into tenths. And so that's going to require us to make equivalent fractions. All right, so if we had, let's say, 3/10, how could we make a fraction equal in hundredths? Okay, remember this goes back to our trick, making equivalent fractions. What do we have to multiply on top and bottom to get from 10 to 100? 10 times 1 is going to give us 10, so that doesn't work. What about 10 times 10? 10 times 10 equals 100. And if we do it to the bottom, we have to do it to the top. So 3/10 is equal to, 3 times 10 is 30, 30 100ths. Okay, and what that means kind of in relation to our blocks, if we were to say that we had 1/10 is equal to how many hundredths? Okay, here's my example. Here's our tenth, right? Doesn't really help that everything's blue. Okay, here's our tenths, and this represents 1/10. But you can see how it's divided. Okay, and it's broken into little cubes, but those little cubes are fused together. So 1/10, how many little cubes are in 1/10? You could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1/10 is equal to 10 hundredths. Okay, so here's what I want you to practice. You've got 7/10. 7/10 is equal to how many hundredths? Do the math. Okay, that's like taking 7/10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I could count 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. 7/10 is equal to 70 hundredths. I got that by multiplying by 10 on top and bottom, by thinking about tenths. Okay, same thing goes for going the other direction. You guys are going to become pros. Okay, you can say, all right, I've got 50 hundredths. How many tenths are in 50 hundredths? So if I had 50 hundredths, how many tens do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I got that by dividing. 50 divided by what gives you 5? 10 divided by what gives you 10? You're dividing by 10 on top and bottom. Okay, another little trick. Say we've got 90 100ths. You can do this with any fraction to simplify it. Say you want to know how many tenths there are, okay? If you can get rid of, if you notice there's lots of zeros, right? So we're going to simplify this fraction, okay? How many zeros do you see on the bottom? 2. And how many do you see on top? Only 1. But we can simplify by taking 1 0 from the top and 1 0 from the bottom. If I can take the same amount, then I'm able to simplify. When I simplified and took out my zeros, took out my tens, divided by 10, I get 9 tenths. Okay? So what you're going to see here is you're going to see addition problems. I'm going to pull one from our assignment. Okay? You're going to see problems that look like this. You're going to have 5 tenths plus 31 hundredths. And your problem is going to be, oh, I made that too wide. But your problem is going to be, are your denominators the same? No. But is there a way that you can make them the same? Yes. 5 tenths, 5 of these 10 blocks, okay, is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. It's 50 out of 100. If I want to change a tenth, or if I want to go from tenths to hundredths, I can just add a 0 on top and bottom. Okay, and I'll show you why. 5 tenths equal to hundredths. We can totally do that. We would multiply by 10. When we multiply by 10, we essentially are just adding a 0. Now are we able to add? 100 and plus hundredths, still going to have our answer in hundredths. What's 50 plus 31? If you have a hard time adding it in your head, write it up and down. 1 and 0, 3 and 5, 81. Your answer would be 81 hundredths. Let's take a look at what the assignment looks like, okay? Because it's best that you get used to what the assignment looks like. So, here we go. Prime example. Let's just start with number 3. Okay? 3 tenths plus 4 hundredths. Well, there's no way that we can simplify 4 hundredths, but there is something we can do to 3 tenths. Okay? We can change it into hundredths. And if I add a 0 on bottom, I have to add a 0 on top. Now my answer is going to be in hundredths. What's 30 plus 4? 34. Okay. What about 71 hundredths plus 5 tenths? Can I simplify? Is there a 0 to take off of 71? No, so I can't simplify, but I can make an equivalent fraction to 5 tenths. 5 tenths is equal to how many hundredths? 50 hundredths. 71 plus 50. It's going to give me 121 hundredths. You'll notice that this is a what? It is a improper fraction. Okay, I hope you are noticing that. For today, I just want you to add. I'm okay if you leave it as an improper fraction. If you want to go ahead and take it that next step and change it into a mixed number, go for it. Okay? All right, let's look at number 5. 3 hundredths plus 38 tenths. Oh, wow, they already have an improper fraction, don't they? That's okay. Okay, 3 tenths we cannot simplify. Can't get any smaller than that. But what we can do, even though it's 38 or 38 tenths. We could still take 38 tenths and make it into a fraction with the denominator of hundredths. We're still going to multiply by 10 on top and bottom. 38 times 1 is 38, and we add our 0. Okay? Or, like we've been doing up here, you just add your 0 to the top and 0 to the bottom. When we take 380 plus 3, we get 383 hundredths. That's definitely an improper fraction. Okay? That's going to give you 3 and 83 hundredths. Some of you guys kind of might be noticing a pattern here. Okay? So, I'm going to skip because I kind of took up a lot of space. Okay? Some of these are going to be taking multiple fractions and adding them together. But don't worry, you've got it. Okay? But you're also going to need to pay attention because some of these are showing that they're equal. Okay? They want to see how you're making equivalent fractions. So don't let those freak you out. Okay, they're showing that you've got 21 hundredths plus 2 tenths is equal to 21 hundredths. See, these are identical. So they want to know, what do you make 2 tenths? 2 tenths is equal to how many hundredths? Remember, if we had a 0 on bottom and a 0 on top, we get 20 hundredths. That's all they're looking for there. Okay, like in number 10, they're giving you your blank tenths plus 68 hundredths is equal to 30 hundredths plus 68 hundredths. Identify which two fractions are the same, right? 68 hundredths, I see that twice. Okay, so that means they're trying to ask you what fraction is equal to 30 hundredths, okay, but that's in tenths. Are we able to simplify here? Could we simplify by taking and dividing by 10 on top and bottom? If I take a 0 on top and bottom, what do I get? I get 3 tenths. And all that's telling you is that 3 of these, if you count it by its single cubes, by its hundredths, it would give you 10, 20, 30 hundredths. Ooh, here they're kind of tricking you. Okay, they've got 4 tenths plus 60 hundredths is equal to blank tenths plus blank tenths. Well, what's already written as tenths? So keep it. 4 tenths, keep the 4 tenths. How can you write 60 hundredths as tenths? What can you take on top and bottom? 1 0, right? That would give you 6 tenths. Okay, please just make sure when you're doing this, you've got all of your fractions written with the same denominator. So like 12, 32 hundredths plus 28 hundredths plus 6 tenths. You are going to need to add a 0 to bottom and top. Now you've got 32 plus 28 plus 60. If you don't feel like you have enough room, find another piece of paper, okay? Use your whiteboard or get an extra piece of notebook paper from your math notebook, okay? Add those numbers together so that you get your correct answer. 32 plus 28 plus 60. I know 2 plus 8 gives me 10. I carry my 1. 1 plus 3 is 4. Plus 2 is 6, plus 6 is 12. I got 120. My denominator stays the same because I'm adding fractions over 100. Like I said earlier, can you leave it as an improper fraction? Yes, I'm okay with you leaving it as an improper fraction. If you want to go ahead and take it and simplify it down, you absolutely can. Okay, that's what we're doing for today's lesson. If you need more practice, if you need more work with this, you let me know, okay? I want to work with you guys. I want to help you out on this. If not, I'm going to go ahead and get you started on your assignment, okay? So Assignment, I'm just going to have you go ahead for homework and practice 12.4, adding fractions with denominators of 110, 10 and 100. I want you to go ahead and do all of the numbers on front. Okay, so numbers 1 through 15. We're going to go ahead, we'll do 1, 2, and 3 together because they look kind of confusing. Okay, and I would write for you to do number 16 and number 17. All right, so let's take a look at the front first. We've got 31 hundredths plus 4 tenths equals 31 hundredths plus blank hundredths. Okay, remember, identify which fraction is identical. 31 hundredths and 31 hundredths. Now you've got 4 tenths. How can you write that as hundredths? 4 tenths is equal to how many hundredths? Here's 1 tenth, so 10, 20, 30, 40. Okay? 31 plus 40 equals 71. Okay, and that's not too easy to see. It's kind of small. Okay, number 2. 17 hundredths plus 9 tenths equals 17 hundredths plus blank. Okay, and then they already wrote it as a mixed number. First, identify which two fractions are the same. 17 hundredths and 17 hundredths. How can we rewrite 9 tenths as a fraction? What do we want our denominator to be? If our denominator needs to stay the same to add, what do we want our denominator to be? Hundredths, right? I'm okay if you go outside of the box a little. So how do we take 9 tenths and make it into hundredths? We could add a 0 on bottom and top, and we'd get 90. So when they took 17 plus 90, they got 107 hundredths, which turns into 1 7/100. Okay? Make sure you identify the equal sign. Okay, that'll help you. This one's confusing. Okay? At the end of all of this, we're going to get the answer 5 tenths. So we've got to figure out blank hundredths plus 3 blank equals 2 blank plus blank tenths. Okay? We want our answer to end up being 5 tenths. So let's look at this side of it. Okay? If we've got tenths plus tenths, we know that this also needs to be in tenths. So we've got 2 tenths plus how many tenths do we need to get to 5? 2 plus what gives you 5? 3, right? So we look over here. What fraction is going to stay the same? 3 tenths and 3 tenths. You have to be like a problem solver here. Okay, so how could we write 2 tenths in hundredths? 2 of these 10 blocks would give you 20 hundredths. Okay? These will be a little more simple. Just make sure and be careful in areas like this, 27 hundredths plus 2 tenths, you've got to write your answer as hundredths. So what can you do to 2 tenths? You can add a 0 on top and bottom. Okay, so make sure you do that where you need to. Now looking at the back. Okay, we'll look at 17 first. It says Robin sells 100 tickets to the 4th grade play. The table shows how many of each ticket she sold. What fraction of the tickets were adult and student tickets? Here's your adult, here's your student, here's your fractions. They want to know what fraction of the tickets were adult and student tickets. So think about what you're going to have to do with the adult fraction and the student fraction to get the total of the two. Okay? Cicely purchases a box of 100 paper clips. She puts 37/100 of the paper clips in a jar on her desk and puts another 6/10 in her drawer at home. Shade a grid that shows how many of the paper clips are in Cecilia's jar and drawer. Then write the fraction the grid represents. Okay, so here's what I would recommend. We've got to show what is in her desk and what is in her drawer at home. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take out some different colors. Okay, and I'm going to show what she put in her jar with this purple pen. 37/100. So I'm going to go ahead and shade 10, 20, 30, and then 7. Oops, I kind of went a little over. Okay, then I'm going to show with a different color what she put in her drawer at home. Now it says 6/10 is what she put in her drawer at home. Do you think I'm just going to do 6 little squares? No, because 6 little squares represents hundredths. I need to do 6 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The only thing I didn't shade was 3 little blocks right here. Hopefully you can see that when you've shaded yours. So it asks, or it tells you, first to shade the grid that shows how many of the paper clips are in Cecilia's jar and drawer. Check. It says, then write the fraction the grid represents. So what is represented here? What fraction? Well, essentially what it is 37/100 plus 6/10. Okay, we could write 6/10 in hundredths and say 60/100. 37 plus 60 gives me 97/100. But the fraction that is shown is 97/100. Let me know if you guys need any help. I will see you guys later. Thank you.